class, they were going to be learning about buffalo grass, and buffalo grass is a plague-like weed that is invading the state of Arizona. By making this rap song, by doing their own research, by choosing this problem that faced their community, then they were able, or this teacher was able to create something that a lot of people are really looking towards, students who love the learning process. And I'm going to begin to read off the quote as well. Using the social networking tools of our age, this one Tucson teacher and a small group of students began to educate politicians, farmers, and Facebook fans like me. Using 21st century tools, they become advocates for their own local community. So one of the things that I like best about this example, the March of the Buffalo Grass, is the fact that this project made the learning relevant to kids, because as I said, it wasn't the teacher standing in the classroom saying, hey, we're going to learn about buffalo grass. By taking ownership over their learning, these students became interested in the issue and had an impact outside of their classroom. So what can you do? Ask yourself, even if you don't work directly as a teacher or directly with students, you can ask yourself, what are issues that affect my community, and how could students be a part of the solution? How could my school be a part of the solution? Many people focus on students graduating from high school, going to college, and getting a job as the start of the solution. But I believe that students can begin making a difference at the same, in school at the same time. In other words, make a difference no matter how young. A classroom where students have the opportunity to solve real-life problems and engage in service learning, I believe, is an innovative classroom. I believe that an innovative classroom isn't just one where the world comes to us, it's one where we are able to learn about the world and help the world. It's one where we can have voice in the education decisions that affect our future. And it's a connected one, in which students can connect in more ways than one, not just in person, but also online. Whether it's checking their grades or communicating with teachers or even seeing whether they've paid for their lunch yet. It's one where we can use online technology, like blogging, to create meaningful work. I think that most people would agree with me when I say that the web has changed the way that we think about knowledge. But when I said this, my dad explained it wasn't just the internet, it was books. And indeed, books democratized knowledge and made it readily available. So if you take the analogy that the internet is the printing press of the modern age, and just as the printing press made the value of books, which used to be copied by hand, less valuable, the internet has made knowledge and basic information plentiful and cheap. If the internet is the printing press of our times, then too many students and teachers are stuck as the monks copying out books by hand. Why should learning be restricted to an hour of class time per subject? By giving students access to technology and access to keep track of their learning and be surrounded by learning, you're allowing them to truly become, you're truly setting up a learning community. But some of the things which make good classrooms aren't things which are new or technological at all. They have to do with approaches which have been around as long as the profession of teaching. Think back to some of the best teachers you had. It could be elementary, middle, high school, college, even outside of school. Why do you think they were so effective? Now raise your hand if you think that your teacher made a personal connection with you, that they knew you and cared about your learning. I'm seeing pretty much all raised hands. And it's this personal connection that teachers strive for when they communicate with their students, because after all, learning is about connecting. Not only connecting facts and places and ideas, but also connecting people. And you have to ask yourself, what is the educator's role? Maybe administrating changes, overseeing projects, all important things, but probably one of the most important things is to form personal connections with students. If you think back to your best teachers, they probably weren't the ones who stood at the front of the class and read line by line out of the textbook. They were the ones who took personal interest in your learning. Personal relationships can affect how well students learn even before they get to be of school age. I was at an event called TEDx Rainier where I heard speaker Patricia Kuhl talk about early childhood development, and she talked about studies that she'd done with babies and their aptitude at learning new languages. As she said, when babies are born, they're basically citizens of the world. They can recognize the syllable sounds that come from many languages, not just the one that they're born into. But after constant exposure to one language, they become nationalized. They pretty much lose that ability. When that was counteracted, when American babies had a Mandarin-speaking research assistant come to their house regularly, much like having a Chinese relative in the home, as she put it, the babies kept recognition of that language's unique sounds. However, hearing Mandarin on audio or watching a television program with Mandarin didn't have an effect. So what does that mean? It goes to show the importance of personal connections. I know that many of you, as teachers, have made personal connections with your students, but I also realized through coming to this conference, I realized how incredibly important behind-the-scenes work can be. That is, by making student information more accessible to us and to our parents, you're facilitating connections, not only between us and our teacher, the student, and their progress, but between our families and our schools. And so when you think about this, actually, then at first coming to this conference, I was expecting that probably a lot of you would be very good with technology, and that not all of you would be teachers necessarily directly working with students. And so I was thinking a little bit, I want to talk about personal connections. And, but I'm wondering, how exactly does technology play into this? That was like that. I realized, technology plays a huge role when it comes to connecting the student to the school, because when we're able to access this more easily, then we're able to facilitate a direct connection to our progress as well as to the people who work with us. So I'd like to thank you for the great honor of coming here to speak, and I hope that you've enjoyed seeing both sides of the classroom and a student's eye view on a few things. And now I want to ask you a question about the newspaper clipping I showed you at the beginning of the session. Do you think that that's actually a clipping out of the You Feel the newspaper scanned in? Or do you think that that was fabricated? Raise your hand if you think it's a newspaper clipping, genuine news. I see some raised hands. Okay. Raise your hand if you think it was fabricated. See a couple raised hands. Okay, you guys might be in for a surprise. Actually, the newspaper clipping, I made it up. I went onto an online software which actually lets you create fake newspaper clippings. And although this piece of news might be false, I hope that you take away something from the speech which is very true. That you truly can learn a lot from young people, and about more than just technology too. Raise your hand if you've ever learned something from a young person about something aside from technology. And I'm raising my hand, and you might think, wow, she's 13. There's not a whole lot of young people she learn, but actually I have learned from 10-year-olds and 7-year-olds even. I think that truly age doesn't define how much we learn from each other. And when you think about it, the best relationships are reciprocal. When was the last really good friendship you had with someone who never wanted to know what you thought? In business or government or even education, it's easier to listen to someone when they listen to you. When I feel respected, I'm more likely to return that feeling. What is it exactly that you can learn from your students? From younger students, maybe it's that almost naive belief in possibility, or the boundless imagination you see come through in a 3-year-old's crayon drawings. It's obvious that just as kids can learn a lot from adults, adults can learn a lot from kids. So our schools need to create opportunities for students to teach their teachers, maybe not necessarily by herding them into classrooms and taking over the PA system, but possibly through service learning, through projects, and through even asking questions. At the Kids Conference, I organized TEDx Rev, and we heard from all these speakers about issues of education and environment, all these things. And when they spoke about education, they spoke about all these education decisions which had been made and which affected them directly, and in every case, these had been made without their input and without asking them, what do you think about this? And that's a shame, I think. It's something that we need to fix. At my house, we have a book of brain teasers, and one of them tells a story. A boy is in an accident, he goes to the hospital. The doctor comes over, and the doctor says, "This is my son. His dad is not at the hospital. So how is this possible?" Well, of course it's possible because the doctor is his mother, and what that does apparently is play on cultural perceptions of doctors always being men. I'm not sure if it works so well today because we know a lot of women doctors, but what is the average age of the person that you think of when you hear the word teacher? Probably an adult. I want you to change that image. Why does the teacher always, every single time, have to be an adult? And you can think of a comparable riddle on your own. I've been switching teacher hats and student hats over the course of the speech, but really you shouldn't have a teacher hat and a student hat. You should always have one hat, because everyone has something to learn, and everyone has something to teach. Teaching and learning is a two-way street, but unlike on the real street, there's no driver's age requirement. I would like to thank you for all the work that you do on behalf of students like me. Whether you're a teacher, child, or student, I also encourage you to think about what you each can learn from the other. After all, it's only when we know how to learn that we truly know how to teach. Thank you.